And joining us now is she's the Hall of Fame head coach. Of course, when you think of the state of Louisiana and softball, this name comes up. Hall of Famers in too many places to mention. Most recently, LSU. And of course, you see her as an analyst on SEC Network Plus with Lynn Rollins, one of our favorites. Yvette Girouard, honored to have her back on the show. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Softball's in full gear and watching a little basketball as I'm doing softball, but trying to keep track of everybody.
Well, I was thinking of you because obviously it's awesome to see LSU and the Ragin Cajuns playing every year now, like they have for the last couple of years, thanks to Coach Glasco and Coach Torina. You get the unique perspective because you get to call them. You call the games from obviously at Lafayette, and then you get to call the game in Baton Rouge. And first, I want to ask you that: what has that been like for you to call that matchup in two different places with two different play-by-play people?
It's very cool. My play-by-play person in Lafayette is Dan McDonald, who was the head sports information director when I was there for the Raging Cajuns. So we go way back, and so we can tell stories. He was with me when they first built. Well, now it's called Lamson Park at Yvette Girouard Field, but he was with me when they first built that. So we go way back, and so it's easy to do broadcast with him, and of course with Lynn. We just have so much fun.
It is. It's been a blast to watch, and LSU takes both games from the Cajuns. What's kind of your thoughts on those two games, and what stood out to you watching those two games unfold like it did?
Well, the Cajuns at times they start 6 and 7 freshmen, and last night, I mean, there was a play with the bases loaded, and the girl just froze. The shortstop just froze. So I want to, say that they're going to go through some trials with so many freshmen. The concern, I think, is in the circle. I know that they have a couple of pitchers that can um, maybe do better than they're doing. Maybe they're just haven't hit their strides yet. They have a great looking freshman in the Landry girl, and I think she's just going to have to learn how to pitch on this level. Kendra Lamb looks like dynamite, but she didn't against LSU both games, so not quite, well. Actually, she got pulled. No, that was against Alabama. Excuse me. But anyway, I've got them all mixed up
A lot
here.
of SEC games there that they're
Too many
facing there.
games, too many games. But anyway, they got to get the circle fixed, and I think they'll be okay. They've got a ton of potential, but they might be a couple of years away because of their youth.
Yeah, it's early a year. When they left a lot of runners on base, especially on the Thursday night game. I think they had a runner on in every inning, but they just couldn't come up with that clutch hitting. I feel like that's also part of the youth there too, is on the offensive end a little bit.
Well, that to me, that's championship teams. When you can drive in RBIs in primetime situations, that's what wins you championships. I think they'll be fine in the Sun Belt Conference that they have, totally dominated through the years. I think they'll be fine, although that conference is getting better. LSU lost to Troy 2 nights ago, and you can't ever count out South Alabama. So they'll have a little bit of their work cut out for them. Don't know if they'll host because now, they're out of conference schedule. They lost to Alabama, they lost to LSU. They do host Texas. So for their RPI points, they really need to do good against Texas, but they'll be fine. They're just very young, and it just shows up in crucial situations.
Yeah, and Leanna Johnson, as you mentioned, for Troy, she's off to a great start. Their ace pitcher. Texas State's very talented as
Always.
well. A league that's about to get stronger with the future additions of JMU and Marshall and Southern Miss. So that Sun Belt League, coach, it's going to turn into another power league in the South like the SEC. LSU, obviously, always Coach Torina and the Tigers. They're going to get set to play SEC play. They split with Troy, as you mentioned, beat the Cajuns twice. What's been your thoughts on the LSU Tigers 2022 edition?
Well, unfortunately, they start with Alabama in SEC play. Thank you very much. But it is at Tiger Park. Don't ever count out Beth Torina. I think she's a heck of a coach. Um, The circle I think is fine. It's just getting those clutch hits. And again, some of their ball players are new and don't have a lot of experience, but I love the first two hitters. I think they're as good as anybody in the country, and Coffee and Briggs. Briggs handles the bat as well as anybody in the two hole. But I see a lot of potential in that team. They just, that again, the runners left on base is the nemesis for the Tigers, and they just have to figure out somebody's got to step up and get that big hit.
Yeah, it's a great point. Timely hitting, you mentioned that earlier. That's always a big part of it. And it's not going to get off to an easy start with Alabama, but, Coach Torina is always used to playing tough schedules. So what else is new, right? Get ready for SEC.
She's young and she doesn't care who she plays. Just bring it on. So,
What do you think is the thing that both teams, starting with LSU, have to improve on to accomplish their goals from what you've seen? What are the couple areas you think they need to improve on?
well, LSU's defense was a little shaky, but it's come along since the Florida tournament. I thought it's like, whoa, but I think they put an emphasis on it since they got back, and maybe in practice, I'm not quite sure, but that looks so much better. I think that she definitely has pitching in the circle to stop vaunted, especially Kilponen, and Sunseri looks a lot better lately. But once again, they're getting runners on. The key is the RBIs. For me, that's how I always voted for All-American. I looked at those RBIs. People that can drive in, 40, 30 RBIs, vote for them every time.
What's it been like? I asked you earlier about covering the two teams playing each other in the regular season. What's it been like in the state of Louisiana since the two schools are now playing in the regular season? It's been well documented, the history, and that they didn't play for a while. What's it been like now that we've gone through a couple of years now of them playing in the regular season from your point of view?
Well, I think it's wonderful for softball. They didn't play because of the previous regimes. Me and the previous regime in Lafayette. Not a lot of bad blood for a while, but a lot of that is over now. And, Beth and Gerry were not involved in that. So they agreed to play. And I think that's awesome that they go one night, to Lafayette, and then one night's in Tiger Park. So the fans benefit. I think it's wonderful, again, for the state. You've got two superpowers within an hour of each other. I just think it's been my point of emphasis for years now. I just think it's terrible that they always get matched up, that it's almost impossible that they would ever reach the College World Series together. And I think that's a shame, because my gosh, would there be a party in Oklahoma City if you could bring all these Louisiana Cajun, fun-loving Tiger fans?
Right, we've seen that with Bedlam with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State at the World Series. It'd be kind of cool to see the two Louisiana schools
Right.
in the same place instead of in the regionals. And that's been, do you think that'll ever change in softball? I feel like that's the next step. It's such a popular sport now. More people are tuning in ever before. The television numbers are big. Make it more of a national tournament like we see in basketball.
I think you hit the nail on the head. When I was coaching, TV was the next horizon for us. Well, we've reached that. Well, how about now making it as competitive as possible? And how about, the NCAA is always talking about the student athletes experience. Well, if they go to the same regional and super regional every dang year, what kind of experience is that?
Yeah.
So let's do what's best for the sport, and it's been it's a bug, that it can almost never happen.
I agree. I hope it changes. I think that's the next step. I don't know when that'll happen, but I think softball is starting to become a revenue making sport. Patrick Murphy, Alabama head coach, you know him very well. He's mentioned that, talked about that as well. And I think I've seen it. I mean, you just look at baseball and softball at LSU. I see a lot of people there, and I see in Lafayette, there's packed houses there. You can't tell me they're not making money at revenues over there.
Always, but you hit the nail on the head. When we start to make money, then I guess they'll care about making it a little bit fairer.
Do you like the format that Coach Glasgow and Coach Torina they kind of set up where they play each other and they're both kind of hosting their tournaments at the same time? It's a very unique concept. What's been your thoughts on this concept? Do you like it?
I don't know. I meant to ask the visiting teams because I think if I was a coach and if that was my team, I think that would be pretty cool that I'd play in Lafayette one night or for a whole day and then just go 60 miles down the road and play in another nice stadium. So I think that's a very cool concept. And I would assume that the teams really like it.
What's when you're in the booth? What's it been like being in the booth to watch the two teams play? After as opposed to being on the dugout, as opposed to being in the stands. What goes through your mind when you're in the booth, knowing these two schools so well, having so much history, helping build both of these programs? What goes through your mind when you do these games?
Well, it's I've said it before, it's a no-win situation. People will say, oh, you're pulling for the Tigers. Oh, you talk too much about the Cajuns. So, I just try to relax and watch the game and like it. It's fascinating to watch, and like someone said before, you made us care. You made us care about the Cajuns so much that, and of course, I'm a Ragin Cajun. I was born that. I graduated from the school. You just want to beat LSU in anything that you play. I say it over and over again. If there's a Tiddlywinks contest, they could sell it out if it was between the Cajuns and the Tigers. So, LSU is kind of like the big brother, but the Cajuns certainly don't feel like they're the little sister. So, it's interesting.
What was it like to be honored? You've been honored by both schools. We'll get to LSU in a moment, but what was it like when you got honored, but when you returned over there in Lafayette?
Well, I almost fainted when they unveiled the tarp and it said my name on the field. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that would happen. I have to thank the administration there now because they have just been phenomenal in welcoming me back because kind of wasn't welcome there for a while, and my ex-players were very involved in getting that happening. And so I thought I had reached the pinnacle. And then when LSU did it, I was blown away with LSU because I was only there 11 years. And when you think of the coaches and the players and the athletes in LSU's history, I never even dreamed that something like this could happen.
Yeah, you were inducted into their Hall of Fame in November. I talked to Coach Torina. She was there. What was that like to be inducted at the LSU Hall of Fame?
It was surreal. And I asked that Beth present me. So she came up on stage with me, and I'm pretty sure she nominated me also. So, I still can't believe it because it's like I said, when you think about who has gone through those doors and coached in those facilities, it's kind of just mind-boggling to me.
Explain for us that are not from Louisiana, what is it about the sport of softball in Louisiana that is so passionate? The Cajun fans are as rabid about softball. It really is. It's incredible. I've said that's arguably the most popular sport they have on that, campus. LSU softball is huge. And it's not just there. I know there's a passion all over the place from LSU Eunice down in the lower level there when Andy Lee was the head coach and they went in all those national titles. Speak for that passion of softball in the state of Louisiana. Where did that come from? And you clearly saw it up close. You're a big part of that.
Well, I think in Lafayette, it's because, as you said, it's the best program the school has had for years. I mean, we went to 3 World Series while I was there. They've been to 3 others. It's been phenomenal. We really worked hard, and Patrick Murphy was a big part of that with me. We really worked hard on making it an event, that it was the thing to do when the Lady Cajuns were playing, to be there. And we got the most influential people in town bought into our program, and then they started bringing everybody else. So I know that's how Lafayette and the Cajuns developed, and they just have so much pride in it now. And I say it all the time, we don't have beaches and mountains, but we got great food and we have awesome people that all they want to do is love you and feed you. So, you can be a Cinderella in that town if you play for the softball team. And in that LSU, they love their sports. And if you win, they will certainly come. But again, I'll say the same thing. We don't have our beaches and our mountains, but we have fantastic sports teams.
Well, and the thing I appreciate about the two programs is they've had radio. They were among the first schools to have radio coverage for softball. Patrick Wright, who's been there forever.
Since day one. Day one,
right? Okay, you know better. He was there since day one. The Cajuns have had their radio crews for a long time there as well, too, from the beginning there. Talk about that commitment from both of those schools. You've seen it from a broadcasting standpoint. From the radio side, Patrick Wright, day one, he's like a historian. He's my go-to anytime something LSU happens. Same thing with the Cajuns broadcast crew they have. And then obviously that's blossomed into now television where you're a part of it.
I think that it's just a natural fit. I think this is a big baseball area too. So even if you've never been around, now your fast pitch is everywhere now, but when I first started, no one was playing it. I had never even seen it. I never played it. My dad took me to baseball games in Houston every summer, so I was a baseball girl. But I think that's it. It's such a big baseball area. Of course, look at the Tigers with all their national championships. So it was just a natural fit. And I always say this, it's a game. If you give it a chance, just go one time and tell me you don't like it. Because and I'm still a baseball girl, but good God, it's so slow. And, it just captures people's imaginations. You got little girls who I love because now all those little girls are looking up to the big girls, but you've got families, you've got men, you've got, every segment of the society loves the game.
You do right about that. I'm curious, Coach Torina gives you a ton of credit for Tiger Park, for the creation of Tiger Park, that you were ahead of the time. Now everybody's upgrading facilities, and it's such a big part of softball, but you were right at the front end of that. How did you come up with that vision?
Oh, I had a tape measure in the equipment bag for 35 years. I grew up building fields. When I was a little girl, we played baseball from morning to night. We built our own field. When I got to high school and I coached my team, I had that field built. When I got to coach the Lady Cajuns, we built that field. So it's like been a dream of mine forever. And I've gone to major league ballparks, every softball field that I've ever been at. I walk over to baseball and would see things that I like to try and incorporate into Tiger Park. And yeah, they let me design it.
Who influenced you as far as you were coming up with ideas with the state? Was there certain stadiums that kind of influenced you in the design? Did you reach out to certain coaches? Because I've spoken to Patty Gasso. She's building their new stadium there that's going to open in 24. And she reached out to, finally. And she told me she reached out to Joe Evans for permission to go to Diamond Stadium there, the new one at A&M, just to kind of pick their brain a little bit. Who did you pick out? Did you seek out anyone?
We did fly because baseball was building their brand new stadium too. We flew out to Nebraska to look at their facilities, and that's kind of it. But they just kind of left it to me. I mean, I just had all these ideas, measurements, and in my head, and okay, so the clubhouse at Tiger Park has a deck and it overlooks the field, and it's phenomenal for recruiting because it looks straight at Death Valley for football.
Yeah.
And I saw that when we played the World Series was actually in South Carolina, not South Carolina. Where is that? In where they have where they used to have the NFCA.
Oh, Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah, that. And they had a clubhouse like that, and I was like, I want that. So that came from Columbus, Georgia. I always wanted a berm because the old Women's College World Series used to have the berm and the kids were always playing on it. So I wanted that. I wanted it close and compact so that it wouldn't look empty and that everybody could feel like they were on top of the action. So we kind of We didn't make it massive in the middle, but but we made the seats bigger so you could be comfortable. So, it was kind of, like I said, just taking ideas from here and there and everywhere.
Was there self pressure to make sure it was the perfect stadium? Obviously, LSU's got one of the best baseball stadiums for a long. Alex Box is
But it's outdated now.
right, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Was that part of the influence too, that they had that great baseball stadium, and here's your chance to make this great softball cathedral?
There's no question we got it because they were building baseball. They had to build softball.
Yeah.
And but I went out there 3 times a day, every day while it was being constructed to see, what was happening. I told them the berm was too steep. I told them that from forever, and they had to reconstruct it probably about 5-6 years ago because it was too steep. I mean, the kids were it was funny though. I'd watch them from the dugout and say, God, they're having a great time, just like I wanted them to. But they'd have cardboard boxes and they were actually like surfing down the berm. So anyway, fought for the palm trees, all that good stuff. So, and I wanted that because I thought that looked like, like a semi-pro baseball field. Looked like Florida, Arizona, something like that. We don't really grow palm trees that well in Louisiana, but so far so good.
So good. That's good. For sure. What I remember Mike Kendrea complimented the stadium when they came to LSU. He's like, wow, this is incredible. And what's it been like for you to see now that the SEC is kind of the motto of softball? That's the top league in the sport. It has all the facilities, and now the Pac-12 is trying to catch up to them because when you were coaching, it was the other way around.
You're right. A little quick fact here. You know who Mike Candrea is named after?
I do not.
Mike the Tiger. Mike Candrea was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. Mike the Tiger, the mascot for LSU. Mike and I go way back. But anyway, yes. When he was sent to LSU to regional and he was walking off, he looked at, I went down and talked to him. He said, look at this. We're so far behind now. And you're right. We were always chasing the Pac-10. And so the tables have turned.
It definitely has turned. What's been your thoughts of the whole explosion of softball on television? You're a part of it. What's been your thoughts as you've seen it grow?
I think it's awesome. I think that's why you see the numbers at the College World Series. Everybody wants to go. I think that's why you see people turning into it every night, trying to find it. I mean, it's funny. My phone, when we're not broadcasting, and maybe it's just the PA because LSU can only do so many events in one night. My phone is blowing up. We can't hear you. And I'm like, well, I guess not. I'm at my house right now. But anyway, I think it's phenomenal. We all knew, all us old girls, gals and guys, that TV was the next horizon. And, it's there now. So we did that.
Was broadcasting something you wanted to do? I mean, how did you get into broadcasting?
No, but when I decided I was going to retire, I did go to LSU. Kevin Wagner, who's our producer, director, I'm quite sure what his title is. I said, I'd really like to do the broadcast. And he said, okay, they're yours. And I was like, okay. And then, it was really weird when you stick a mic in a coach's face, they can just blah, 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 blah. But when you're broadcasting, I kind of just froze the first time with that camera. I was like, oh, you're not supposed to make a mistake. And so anyway, but Lynn and I have our own thing. And I think we're unique and it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, it gets a lot of feedback. And how was that, you and Lynn? Did you knew Lynn before that? I mean, how did Lynn help you in transitioning to broadcasting?
Absolutely. Lynn was already doing our game. So we go back and we had a great relationship. And yes, he's been my mentor and he's helped me along the way, but he's also allowed me just to do my own thing too. So that's fun.
When you, it's funny because Coach Torina does a weekly media availabilities. Coach, Glasco has to do a ton of media stuff. What was it like dealing the media when you were the coach? Was it probably not as scrutinized as it is now? Was it?
No, thank God I wasn't around with all this internet, Twitter, TikTok, all the Instagram. No, We would have during the season at towards the end, we had maybe a weekly or every other week little press conference thing, but nothing like it is today.
No, it's just pretty explosive how things have happened there. Few national topics. I'm curious. You mentioned Mike Andrea. He's retired. What's that been like to no Caitlin Lowe's taken over, his former player. How do you think he'll handle retirement?
He probably knew, so I think he should do just fine. I mean, I knew for the last probably 2 years that I, kind of had lost my complete love and zeal for it. I think you have to devote so much energy to stay on top that, I knew. So I have a feeling he knew. I think he's playing a lot of golf. I think he's happy. And I don't think you really understand the stress until you don't have it anymore. And that first year, everyone said, "Oh my gosh, your face looks so different." So, because it's constant. Recruiting never stops. Never, and there's issues, you get to a point where you just want to be responsible for you and your family, not everybody else's.
Right, and it's such a different world now. You got NIL, you got the transfer portal. There's more movement in the sport, and more eyeballs. There's more games, and I remember Coach Condrea when we've had him on. He said one of the toughest things now is that everybody sees your teams, so it's easier to scout because you have tape.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah. There's no surprises, none.
That's kind of wild.
I mean, I do that for my broadcast. I go and I watch a game, and I'm like,
yeah.
Ooh.
When you see Tennessee now, you see Karen Weekly. You don't see Ralph. Ralph retired. I've heard he's doing some radio, perhaps following your footsteps. What was your reaction when you heard Ralph retiring?
Well, I texted him right away, and then he called me the other day, and I think he has something in the works that I'm not going to divulge it, but I think it'll be good for softball, and everybody will find it interesting.
That's pretty good. And Lou Harris Champer retired too.
That took me by surprise.
That would caught everybody off guard.
Yeah, but I think her children are at the age where she just doesn't want to miss anymore. I think it's so hard for a woman who has children to do this job, because I saw other coaches leaving and their kids crying because their mother was going on a trip. So, I just think they give up a lot. Maybe Lou didn't want to give up anything anymore.
Do you marvel then what Beth does with the family, and you see it up close?
Oh my gosh! They got here. They were just two of them. Now they're five. Her mom and dad are there, and of course Nick is just a champion. But without their help, I don't know how she could do this job.
No, it's an incredible support. Hard to believe she's been there a decade. Does that seem like it's blown by?
Yeah, because I correlated with my retirement. This is her 11th year. Okay, so we're tied for the longest tenure as a coach at LSU. Next year, she'll be the longest tenured softball coach ever in the program's history.
Wow, that's a great stat. I didn't know that.
She didn't know it either till I told her.
How would she react to that?
She went, "Really?" So, she's.
What you knew right away? You've told me you knew right away she was the right person for the job. What was it that you knew about her that you felt this was the right the fit?
Well, I tried to hire her for a couple years before to be my pitching coach, and she was at Houston, and she almost did it, I think, but it was a lateral move, and she wanted to be a head coach. So if you want to be a head coach, go be a head coach somewhere. And she took the FIU job, which was, in retrospect, she did the right thing, because then she ended up being the head coach at LSU. When Pat Murphy, that whole saga went down, I had gone, the administration had asked me for like 5 names, and she certainly was on it. So.
That's right. The Patrick Murphy, that whole side a decade ago. Hard to believe that all took place with such a huge softball star. What's been your thoughts on Coach Murphy? I mean, he's still going, and he's got another great team. I know you follow him too. Obviously, what's been your thoughts on him, and how long do you think he's got? He could go.
As long as Montana Fouts is around, I bet you he can go. Those pitchers make us coaches look like geniuses. I don't know if you know the whole story of Patrick Murphy, but he and Dan McDonald, who is my play-by-play guy in Lafayette, we talked about this the other day on the air. Dan McDonald answered an ad in a national publication. Patrick Murphy was looking for a sports information graduate assistantship. Dan saw it and hired Pat. Pat was my SID,
Yep.
and I could tell how very intelligent he was. And I hired him as my coach. And every summer he went to coach his baseball team in Iowa. But what a start, what a story. So
when did you know he was going to be a great coach? Because you're right, he's in the media relations, which obviously he does a great job with the media and handle them. But did you see this coach, Hall of Fame coach that he is, develop?
Yeah, right away. We would talk softball and we would just talk the game, and he had been around it in Iowa, and I saw how sharp he was. His story, he was a great writer. And then of course he majored in education with a graduate degree in communication. So he's one of the best teachers I've ever been around.
Amazing. And amazing. Great spokesman for the sport too.
Very grateful and humble.
Yeah, speaks up on a lot of topics as well. What's been your thoughts on Gerry as you've gotten to know Gerry since he's taken over the program?
Gerry is constantly recruiting, constantly on the move. I don't get to spend as much time with him and with the Cajuns as I like. The Tigers keep me pretty busy, and I do live in Baton Rouge, but Gerry's been so great, gracious to me too. So I appreciate that, because, both coaches could say, get away, this is our program now, but they both, welcome me with open arms. And I think he's done a great job. I thought he did a fabulous job taking over a pretty bad situation.
Agreed.
When he first came in, because he took that job and he had to compete in like 2 months with a team he had no clue about.
Right.
So,
and got him into the tournament.
And a fan base that was very divided, a very rabid fan base. So he's done a great job.
No question. I tend to agree. Now, your next game, are you doing the Alabama LSU? I think you do. Are you doing one?
I'm doing the Sunday game.
So you're doing the Sunday game. So take us behind the scenes. How do you prepare for that broadcast? Do you talk? Do you reach out to the coaches? Do you talk? Take us for those that are not aware from a broadcast standpoint. How will you prepare for this upcoming broadcast, which so happens to be Coach Murphy and Coach Torina going head to head?
Well, Beth, I'll just go up there and say, give me a scouting report, and they do. But I will watch the game. I'll ask Patrick some questions because, I've got the ins with both of them. So this one will be fairly easy. The interesting thing about this weekend is that it's alumni weekend in Lafayette and in Baton Rouge.
Oh, no.
And I have players coming in from everywhere. So anyway, the game in Lafayette is early, and the game on Saturday, and the game in Baton Rouge is late. So I think I can make both.
Whoa. All right. Wait. Hold on. Time out. This is amazing. So you've got alumni weekend at both places, both on Saturday.
Right.
You're going to try to make both. Now, the fact that you don't have to broadcast the Saturday game helps you big time here.
Yes. But yeah, I have to do it because they'll say, oh, really? You like them better than my players? You like them better than us? So I can, it'll work. I'm trying to talk one of them into separating these weekends. But
seriously, can we get a little communication? That should be part of the negotiations there.
That's key, it's okay for everybody else, but no, it's going to work out. The game is, I think, at 2 for the Cajuns and 6 or whatever for the Tigers. So
I'm looking at it. Georgia State Sun Belt Conference starting too, by the way. Georgia State, 2:00 Saturday, alumni weekend. Then the LSU game, looking at the time there, actually that's a 9:00 Eastern, 8 Central.
8:00, so that's even better.
Woo!
Even better.
Okay.
It just worked out perfectly.
All right. Well, I definitely want I want photos of this. I want to know. I want a recap of this. This is one of the most coolest things I've ever heard. Is you doing the alumni, and that's so awesome. You get to be a part of both there. So enjoy that because you've deserved that, and hopefully everything works out. But we're gonna let you go here. I know it's a busy time. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and talking some state of Louisiana softball, some LSU softball, some Cajun softball, and everything you've brought up. You've deserved every honor, and always an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Always fun to talk to you.